Hello, this is Quick Skills, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Super Console X2 Pro purchased off of Aliexpress. This is one of the first devices I ever purchased and reviewed on my YouTube channel. However, we're going to be taking a second look at it in 2025. So if you are interested in purchasing a Super Console X2 Pro, go to the description of this video. I'm going to put a link that'll take you to the exact Aliexpress vendor that I use to purchase my Super Console X2 Pro. And as you can see, when you go through AliExpress, there are a ton of listings available for this device. And the one that you're going to see in my description is going to be for this vendor right here. I look to see how many reviews they've completed. So here we have 668 reviews out of 4.4. That's a great review right there. I also want to see that it's choice. If it's choice, they do have a very generous return policy. You can return up to 5 items on AliExpress with no questions asked. So for whatever reason your order doesn't work for you, you have 90 days to return a choice item directly to AliExpress and get a full refund. So I think it's a very generous policy. And when you are selecting your Super Console X2 Pro, you do have various options. You have the 64 gig and the 256 gig. I do think for the extra $10, go ahead and get quadruple the storage space. It just makes a lot of sense for me. But if you are trying to save money, then the 64 gig micro SD card is going to be sufficient. I have the 256 gig micro SD card, and that is what I'll be reviewing here today. And so I do have here for you the Super Console X2 Pro on the screen. This is the same one that I purchased over a year ago, and it is working great. One of the complaints I've heard is that the micro SD card does not last, and that may be the case for some, but mine has been kicking for over a year now. I use it almost every week, at least once a week, to play some of these retro games. And as you can see here on the All Games section, we have a ton of games available. You can see there are over 107,000 games. I do want to put an asterisk by that because as you scroll through, there are various different consoles and the game is ported. If it is existing in each of these different variations, you're going to have the same game in multiple different versions of it. And so as I scroll through here, you will see some of the games pop up more than once. And so the reality is you probably have maybe 60,000 or 70,000 unique games, and then 30,000 are duplicates of one form or the other. But it's still quite a find, and what I find is that sometimes a version of the game won't work, and then the additional copy will. And so having those duplications isn't always necessarily a drawback. Now, what we're going to do today on this review is we are going to go over some of the features that are going to be commonly used on your Super Console X2 Pro. However, if you want additional help, you receive your Super Console X2 Pro and you just want some tips and tricks for it, I did post a video called Tips and Tricks for the Super Console X2 Pro, and it's going to give you a more in-depth method of doing things in this console. And so one of the things that I do when I use my Super Console X2 Pro is one, I customize it. And so if you go here to where it says UI setting, you can set your themes. And so the theme that I have is called New Emuelec. It was one of the free ones that came included with my Super Console X2 Pro. And you can see here there's a few different options. So if I click this one here, it's going to change the way the loading screen looks. And so now we have this menu, and it really is a matter of preference. I like the clean nature of the other one, but let's go back just to compare. We're going to go back over to UI settings. We're going to do New Emuelec, and we're just going to compare the difference. So for me, I just like how clean this one looks. And now what we're going to do is we're going to show you how to configure one of your controllers. And in this video, I do have the included controllers that came with it. And what you do is you're going to push start on your controller. You're going to go to controllers and Bluetooth settings, and you're going to click control mapping. And so here I have 2 controllers plugged into my device. I'm going to push a button on one of the controllers that I want to configure, and then I'm just going to go down each of these selections and push the appropriate button. There is a picture on the screen that tells you what button you're looking for on your controller. I have done this probably 100 times, so I know what's coming up next, but just a simple look at the picture and read of what you're trying to do will show you what you're looking for. And so I've configured the first controller. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to configure the second controller. So I have it in my hand now, and what we're going to do is we are going to control mapping, but this time I'm going to push the button on the new controller. So I have the second USB pad in my hand. And we're going through all the buttons here. And then hotkey, this is going to be one of the keys that helps you do some of the back-end methods of accessing things within the device. I usually use select. And so on player 2 controller, we're going to do that new control pad that we found. So player 1 is going to be the first controller I mapped, and player 2 is going to be the second controller I mapped. It does help if you label your controllers with a sticker, because sometimes they get twisted around, or if they're wireless, it just gets a little confusing as to which is player 1 and player 2. So you can put a sticker on those controllers and that'll help you out. And what I want to do is I want to show you some of the more graphically intense games that I play on this. So this is the Super Console X2 Pro. We're going to load up Asian Dynamite. I do have the sound muted for copyright reasons, but let me see if I can put a little bit of the sound of this game here for you. Okay, so we have Asian Dynamite loaded up. To put credits in the machine, all you're going to do is press select. So you see I'm pushing select and it's adding credits to the machine. Now I'm pushing start to pick my character. So here we have jumped into the match, and now we are going to play the game. And you can see it says press start. And that is so that you can bring in player 2. Since we have 2 controllers configured, let's go ahead and put start. It's just me, so I'm going to play with one hand, but we're going to get this character in. So now we have both characters. I'm trying to play with one hand. It isn't the easiest to do. But you can see I do have 2 players now in here playing at the same time. I'm using one hand for one player and one hand for the other. So forgive me for not being the best. Let's see here. But this is a more 3D version of a game. This is probably came out in the year 2000. 2001. So about a 23-year-old game. This is the extent of the quality of games that you're going to see on the Super Console X2 Pro. You're not going to get PS2 or I have no idea what happened there. You're not going to get PS2 or Xbox out of this device, but this is the Naomi category. And what we're going to do to exit out of this game, I'm just going to push start and select on the controller twice. Now to contrast that, let's try something a little older. Let's go to the Neo Geo. So this is one of everyone's favorite games, Metal Slug. So we're going to jump right into it. And so here we go. We are playing the game. And again, if I were to push start on the second controller, we will have a second player join us. So here we go. We have 2 players in. I'm playing with one hand on each controller, so not the easiest to do. But you can see here we have both players in at the same time. There is no input delay or anything. The sound and video are all coming in as intended. So let's get out of Metal Slug now and try another console. The thing I like about the Super Console X2 Pro is that you are able to play various generations of games. So you saw we were in the Naomi, which was an arcade version of Dreamcast games. Now we are going to be in a PlayStation category, and all the PlayStation games that come included. So if you're a fan of retro games, just imagine how long it would take for you to get all these games in your hands. And I'm going to mute Banjo-Kazooie. I'm going to mute Crash Bandicoot because I don't know if the sound is going to have any copyrighted music on it. I know that the other ones are a little older, probably not going to have copyrighted music. So this is a PlayStation 1 game running off of the Super Console X2 Pro. So you can see here we have Crash Bandicoot loaded up. This is a game I never played. I've only done the first level because of testing this device out, but this was not a game that I particularly remember playing as a kid. I played a few PlayStation games, but I really didn't get into PlayStation until the PlayStation 2. So it has been a blast for me to go back and play some of these older games. But you can see here, everything is working as intended. And we're going to move on to another console. Before we jump, I do want to show you that on the PlayStation, oh, and I'm jumping right back in. So before we start, I want to show you on the bottom left-hand side of your screen, it says there are 655 PlayStation games. We do have PlayStation Portable. This is another category where the graphics are a little bit better, but we don't have as many games on here. It says there's 90 games, and can be a little funky to play some of these. I haven't gone through and tested everything, but the games that I have played worked. And you can see up here at the top, I have a few that are favorited. They're just racing games. So let's jump into one and see how it goes. Okay, so we're right in a race. And I know that Need for Speed does use copyrighted music, so we're just going to keep this muted for now. But you can see we are playing a PSP game on the Super Console X2 Pro, and everything seems to be running smoothly. I do not have any input delay. I can use the analog joystick of my controller or the D-pad. They're both working. And it really is based on the system. So some systems, if they didn't have an analog stick, then what you're using when you use the analog stick is basically a kind of a virtual D-pad on the analog stick. But if the game has an analog stick, then you can kind of steer. Like this game, it was designed to have an analog stick, so you can feel the difference when you use it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to exit out of this game and jump into another console. So one of my favorite things to do is to go into the Mame category, and this is going to have a collection of old school games from the 80s and 90s. And so one of the games that people really love to play when they come over to my house is going to be your X-Men, your Simpsons, those category of games, the beat 'em ups. So we're going to load up X-Men and show you that in action. So here we go. We're putting in credits now. We can select our character, so let's jump right into it. And now we are playing X-Men, the 80s arcade classic, or was it 90s? I'm not entirely sure. But we're playing the 80s or 90s classic X-Men for the Super Console X2 Pro. Just a reminder, you are thinking about purchasing one of these devices, use the link in the description that I provided. That'll make sure that you're getting the same Super Console X2 Pro that I ordered. And you'll have a lot of fun once you get this device. It takes a few weeks to get to your home. It can take 2 to 3 weeks. It is coming from China, but it has sped up. I've had some items that I've ordered from Aliexpress come from China, and they're at my doorstep within 10 days, which is incredibly fast when you think about it. But some trivial thing that I ordered, a pack of stickers or something, and it gets to my house so quickly. But Super Console X2 Pro, I would budget 2 to 3 weeks in case you're ordering this for a gift. But you can see this is working really good. Again, since I have another controller plugged in, I can just push start, and boom, we have our second player in the game. And so, playing with one hand on each controller, but you can see they are both working. So let's go ahead and move on to another console. So here we have the Super Grafx. This is a console that I never really got to play much as a child. I don't know that I know anybody that owned one, but what we're going to do is we're going to jump into a game and see how it performs. So we've loaded up Final Blaster for the Super Grafx. This is a device I've never played before in real life, but with the Super Console you can play it. And you can see here it's working just fine. Now the picture, it might actually be stretched out, and this is something that I do cover in the tips and tricks, but what I want to show you since we came across this issue is what we're going to do is when we load up the game, I'm going to hold down A on my controller, and we're going to go to Advanced Game Options, and we're going to do Game Aspect Ratio. We're going to do 4:3. That is typically the setting for a CRT television. And so when we do that, now you're going to see the picture's not going to be stretched out. And it really is a preference. If you have a widescreen TV, you may prefer to have every inch of that TV covered with the game, but it does stretch the picture. So you can see here now the picture feels a little bit more natural, and I'm actually doing worse, but it is more true to form. This is how the game was intended to represent. And so when you come across games that are also vertical games, you have to change the aspect ratio to, I want to say, like 9:16, I think, and that stretches it so that it's a vertical game. Otherwise, again, the picture will be stretched. So 4:3 is for your CRT games. This is going to be anything that's like Super Nintendo, of course, Super Grafx, since we're in here. Picture should be 4:3 if it doesn't do it by default. Let's move on to the next console. So we have the NES loaded up. I'm going to show you an NES game in action, but I do want to show you another tip since we're here. I can push select on my controller, and you can filter games by text. So what we want to do is we want to see where Punch Out is. So I'm going to put in, you don't have to put in the whole game, but we're going to put in the word punch. And any game that has the word punch in it is going to come up. So we have 4 games. We have Mike Tyson's Punch Out, Power Punch 2, and Punch Out USA. So let's go with Mike Tyson's Punch Out here. And well, let's get some of that iconic music in here. Oh man, I just don't know if Nintendo licensed their music. We're gonna leave it. We're gonna leave it muted for now. But we have Mike Tyson Punch Out loaded up for the NES, and it has basically every NES game you can think of. We are with the stretched out picture, so we're gonna play it a little bit with the stretched out picture. Then I'm gonna put it to 4:3 so you can see the difference on your screen. Again, it's a matter of preference on a Nintendo game like this. I don't know that I'm messing with the aspect ratio, but if it does bug you, then one thing you can do is just change that. And so we have Little Mac going into his first fight, and so since there's only 2 buttons on the NES, I'm only pushing A and B on my controller. And all these games, when I switch from one console to the other, the console does auto map. And in case you're playing a fighter game with a very specific button layout, you are able to remap the controller. That I do address that in this tips and trick video that I put out. And so now I'm going to hold A again. We're going to go to Advanced Options. We are going to go to Aspect Ratio. We're going to put 4:3. And now we're going right back into Mike Tyson's Punch Out, so you can see what it looks like with the 4:3 ratio. Now, on a game like this, I do want to share with you another tip for using the Super Console. You're going to have a lot of fun playing these retro games because they were notoriously hard, and you only had so many lives. So you'd get, X far into the game, you'd run out of lives and have to start all over again. Super Punch Out is a prime example for that. You have continues, but you might get to a really tough opponent and then have to go all the way back to the start of the round, and it can be very frustrating to have to consistently restart. And so now we see on the screen we are using the 4:3 aspect ratio. We're fighting again, and now the picture has been adjusted on your screen to represent what it would have looked like on an old school television. And so what I was going to hint at now, the other trick is I can hold select and X on my controller. It's going to pause the game. Now what we can do is we can do save state. So we want to save the state. So it says save state to slot 0. So now I'm getting beat up, right? I don't want to take that damage, or maybe I just want to go at the end of the fight. If I lose, I want to go back to the start of the fight. I just push select and X, and then I go to load state. And so now we're back in time before I took that damage, and this time I can play it a little bit differently. And you can do this as much as you like. There is a way where you can save state, and where it says state slot, you can switch where you save it. So if you do it over 0 and then you save again, it's going to replace the save under 0. But if you move it to 1, it'll replace the save slot on 1. So if you get really invested in a game and you want to double back it up, I would save the state on 0 and 1 or multiple different save states, because what can happen, sometimes you mean to load the state and instead you save the state and it overwrites the old good save and you're back, it saved where you don't want to be. So that's why you may want to do that. And so that was just as easy as holding select and X on your controller so that you can pull up that menu and do your quick saves. Let's move on to another console. So something fun, I can show you two things at once, is Super Nintendo hacks. So not only is there Super Nintendo, but we also have Super Nintendo hacks. So this is where someone has gone in and modified the game so that it has a different appearance to it, or what's common for a lot of these is they'll make the game extra hard. So I know Mario has so many different Mario versions. And if you've seen on video where the Mario game is incredibly hard, that is a hack. And so we're going to load one up and see what it looks like. I've never played this hack before, but we're going to jump right into it. So this map looks completely different. This one's titled Nostalgia. Now, I've never played this, so this is going to be my first attempt at this. But I wonder, I wonder what makes it nostalgia. This kind of reminds me of Mario Brothers 3. Ooh. But using the Super Mario World. Oh, I didn't make that jump. So what's cool about the hacks is that one, you can play the game that you know, just the regular one that's not hacked, but also you can also enjoy this version. And it gives you some playability. I know Zelda, they have a ton of Zelda games on there that have been modded and hacked. Oh, let's see. Yes, we made it. Oh, okay. Trying to just beat the... Oh, okay. Oh, I'm not going to beat the level. It's not even hard. I just don't know what's coming up. So let's go ahead and get out of there so you could see that the Super Nintendo's working very good, and also the hacks category. Nintendo 64, I do want to throw in a little bit of an asterisk on this one. This is the weirdest console out of any of the older consoles. It seems to be the toughest one to emulate. I always load up Super Mario 64 because that tends to be the game that most people are excited to play on the N64. And I have it running on the Super Console X2 Pro. However, the graphics aren't the best. You're going to see some pop in and out. I think I have a quick save in here, so let's see if I do. Okay, we do not have a quick save here, so we're just going to jump right into it. Yeah, this core does not support save states. And what it is there are different emulators that you can use to play the game. And what I have doing, you can see the plus plus. I sped it up because I already know this takes a little while. So it's sped up right now. I did select and right trigger to speed up the game. Just a little tip there for you. And once we get out of that, we'll slow it back down. So this is the pop-in that I didn't like. I am not using all of... You can switch the emulators to try to run it differently. So this one sacrifices the visuals for performance. And so let's speed this up. So because I wanted to have a playable version of Super Mario Brothers or Super Mario 64, I decided to put the emulator that didn't have the best graphics, and it also doesn't have quick saves. But if you beat the level and you save it within the game, it will remember where you are. So if we can just beat this first level, which I've done 100 times, it will remember that I did it when I exit out of there. So, and I'll show you that it works. And we might just get the Chomp Chomp star, because that's the fastest one to get on this map without having to go too crazy into the levels. So let's free the Chomp Chomp, get the star behind the chain. And again, the purpose is to show you that Mario 64 works. It's just graphically not the same. Ooh, I should have... Let's see here. And I thought this would be the easiest. Instead, he's... Oh, okay, well, that took me out. If it lets me save, it's not letting me save. Okay, let's try that again. So this will apply to just about any game that has an internal save. You don't have to do quick saves. You can just save the game using any method that the game will let you save. So like Pokemon, for instance, if you're playing that on the... Oh, come on, I didn't... I could have been a little bit more smarter with that. Oh, nice. There we go. We're going to get our star. So we have our star there. Of course I can't reach it, so I gotta... There we go. Gotta run and jump into it. So here's the screen that shows you that you can save. So save and continue. So we saved and continued. Now we're going to exit out. We're going to reload Mario 64. So here we have Mario 64 rebooted up, and now you can see it remembered that I had that 1 star. So when I jump in, it's going to take me to the game where I last saved. So I already have 1 star. You can see that on the top right-hand side of the screen. And aside for some graphical issues, again, there are other emulators that have better graphics, but I saw that the frame rate was dropping. This was the best option with the Super Console X2 Pro. But I do want to show you another N64 game because it just seems to be some N64 games. But if we go to, I think, Cruis'n USA, that one performs perfect. So let's jump into that. And depending on which emulator is loaded, you might be able to quick save. So we're still in an emulator that doesn't have support quick saves. But so we're jumping into Cruis'n USA. So you can see a little bit of pop in. And actually, I think what I might have done is change all of N64 to the same emulator. But I do want to show you. Okay, I got to push left trigger. I want to show you that you can switch the emulators out so that if you don't like that pop-in, some games will perform just as good with the better emulator. So let's try that real quick. So to switch emulators, all you're going to do is hold the A button again. You're going to go to Advanced Game Options. But instead of going to Game Aspect Ratio, what we're going to do is we're going to go to Emulator. And so the best one is going to be this Mupin 64 Plus Next Alt. That one's going to be the most demanding on your Super Console X2 Pro. So now we have it loaded under the better emulator, and we now have save state. So I can quick save here, and the graphics are a little bit more demanding for it. But again, it just depends on the game. When I use this for Mario 64, the frame rate dropped. So you can see the frame rate on the top right-hand side. We're at 40 right now. It's going down. Some of the better consoles that cost more money will not have frame rate issues. So yes, I am having a frame rate issue here. The game is moving at 40 frames per second. This is, and you can tell because you see the time at the top. Those are counting down seconds, and those seconds are a long time. So some games you may not be able to run this emulator. Other games you might need to run the one that I had it at before. So we're going to exit out of here, and I just wanted to show you the issue that I had with N64 games. But if you mess with the emulators, you might have a little bit of pop in, but it's a good trade-off. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go into Game Boy Color. I want to show you some of the games that are on here. This is Zoboomafoo for the Game Boy Color. I highly doubt that we have any copyrighted music. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the screen. And the reason why none of these are set for 4.3 is I have this connected to a retro console that is already a 4.3 screen. So I don't have to worry about this when I have it on my arcade cabinet. The monitor is a 4.3. So I'm realizing now that because I'm playing on my computer monitor to record this video, I have to switch all these to 4.3. So here we have Zoboomafoo for the Game Boy Color. This is a pretty easy game. It's a kid's game, but you can see here that it is working perfectly, and all the Game Boy Color games on here worked excellent for me. I didn't have any issues whatsoever playing these games. So Game Boy Color only had 2 buttons, and this game only uses 1 button. They both do the same. There's 2 buttons. They both do the same thing, and that's just jump. But we can see here the game is working great. So we're going to move on to another console. So we do have the Game Boy Advance. If you've never played the Game Boy Advance, I do want to tell you that it is amazing. There are a ton of games on here that, like Advanced Wars, this is a great game. There's a ton of games in here that are a bunch of fun. I think this is a hidden gem for people that have not played the Game Boy Advance. These were some of the best portable games you could have, and they stood on their own. As far as like playing them at home, like if you didn't have a console and this was the only thing that you had to play with, I mean this could replace your TV console game. So let's see if we can jump into something that is entertaining. All right, we have Casper, the friendly ghost, loaded up on the Game Boy Advance. I've never played this game before, but as I was going through the list, I was like, hey, let's give it a go, see what it looks like. So we don't need a tutorial. Let's just start a new game. Let's get some of that music in here. Hopefully we don't have any copyrighted music. And so you can see I'm playing a Game Boy Advance game. Oh, I guess I gotta scare this guy awake? Is that what I'm trying to do? I should have done the tutorial. I have no idea what's going on. It looks like Casper can take the form of different people. I'm selecting those on the bottom of my screen by using the bumpers. But yeah, I probably should have watched the tutorial. But you can see here we got excellent picture, excellent sound. Is that Richie Rich? But anyways, this game is working great. I just don't know how to play it. Let's move on to the next console. So here we have the 3DO. There's only 14 games on here. I did not play a lot of these games, but look, we have Myst. That's a game that people still play today. Alone in the Dark. That was a great, scary game. Wolfenstein 3D, Need for Speed, the original Need for Speed. We have a Street Fighter game in here. Samurai Showdown. Nothing in here that's crazy. I don't even see Gex, which is funny because he's kind of like the cover of the 3DO. We're going to go ahead and skip that one. I do want to show you the Sega Genesis, so let's jump into a game there. So we are searching for Sonic. Show you all the Sonic games. So we have Sonic 3D Blast, Sonic 3. Let's jump into Sonic 3. This is the Europe version. I don't know how different it's going to be from the American. And this one loaded at 4.3 automatically, so that's great. So here we have Sonic. I don't know if it has licensed music, so we're going to keep the sound muted. So think about how amazing this is. Within a matter of a few minutes, I've been able to switch from console to console with relatively no issue. All the Genesis games, all the Super Nintendo games, they're all going to work perfectly. You might encounter a few issues with the N64. Some of the old arcade games, you might not realize, like, oh, well, they're really hard to emulate, and you might have to just not have that game. But of the 107,000 games, I would say 80% are just going to work as is. 10% you'll have to tinker with the settings, and then there's going to be probably 10% of games that just won't have a workaround or solution. However, I will tell you, I do respond to a lot of the comments on my videos, so if you do come across a problem in any of the games you try to play, post it in one of my videos, and I'll see if I can find a solution for your problem. But I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if I ended up in a dead end, but we're going to exit out of the Sega Genesis and Sonic 3. So just like the Sega, we have this, or the Super Nintendo, we have Sega Genesis hacks. We have Game Gear, Sega 32X, Sega CD, Sega Saturn. Let's look in there. So under Sega Saturn, it says there's 24 games. So, here's Gex, Sonic Jam. We have all these other Sega Saturn games already installed. It is easy to put new games in. So here we have the Dreamcast. Let's load that one up while I talk about this. And this is going to be the last console I review for this video. So if you made it this far, let me know in the comments if you decide to buy one, or if you have bought one, let me know what you think, because I think for the money, it's a great investment. It has all the ROMs and emulators all installed on a portable device that you can plug into your television. But what I was going to say is that think about how awesome it is to be able to switch from console to console and use this device at home. It's very easy to take with you. on vacation. So if you have like gatherings and you know, of course, it'd be awesome to have a PS5 or whatever with you. But I guarantee you, a lot of people of all ages are going to enjoy this. I'm having a little bit of trouble picking my character, but I think I figured it out. So here we have Mitsurugi on the Dreamcast playing Soul Calibur 1, the original Soul Calibur. This is a great game. The one thing I will say is that the buttons are not mapped correctly. So I am having a little bit of trouble, like muscle memory. This button that I'm pressing is the lowest button on my controller, and there is a way to map. For fighting games are going to be the ones where you notice the most that the controllers aren't configured right. And so all you got to do is hold select and X, and then over here where it says controls, remap port 1 control. So if I have controller 1 in my hand, if I do port 1 controls, I can actually change each individual button. So whatever button I'm looking for, I can just press on my controller here, and that'll change it. It's a little tedious, but once you do it, it will work, and you'll be able to play your fighting games exactly the way you want to. So that's going to conclude this video. I hope you enjoyed this video. The Super Console X2 Pro is one of my favorite purchases that I ever had off of AliExpress. I have purchased other retro consoles like the Super Console X4 Pro. I always go back to the X2 Pro because for the money, I'd rather save on the computer chip and just play. It's basically playing the same games. The Super Console X4 Pro can play some of those emulators a little better on the N64, but it's not going to be perfect, and it ends up causing more headaches for me, and I spent more money for more headaches. So if you do want to save $55 to your door, this is the best power to money ratio. Now, there are setups where you can spend $200, $300 and run Xbox, Switch, consoles on your computer or on your portable device. But again, I think for the purpose of playing retro games at home, having it set up for kids, this is the easiest and less headache-inducing way to go about it with retro consoles. So this is Quick Skills. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much. You have a good day.